This is Juna. She's our dog now, and we literally got her yesterday in the morning. And so we just took her on a walk. Did you feed her?
Yeah, I fed her. She peed twice. Everything, got her in a little exercise.
She's like 5 or 6 years old.
Drank a bunch of water.
Hey, good morning.
Bake and bake. Oh, you didn't have to get all dressed up. Oh, that was just a picture.
No.
It's like,
No,
oh,
I'm still dressed, just not all dressed up.
we're dressed too. Check it out, yo. Woo! Magic.
Well, I'm the only one without the right swag then, I guess.
That's okay. We can send you. We're gonna get hoodies anyway. You'll want the hoodies.
Dog. This is our dog.
We got her yesterday.
Super. Yesterday?
Yeah.
So cute. What's his or her name?
Juna.
Juna?
Yeah.
That is amazing. And what's the breed?
She's a beagle mix.
Super cute. Super cute. I got a dog about 8 months ago, a little Portuguese water dog named Kala, and she's fantastic. She wiggles and she licks your face, and she's great.
Simultaneous sip.
Okay, by the way,
Simultaneous sip.
you're live on Facebook.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
You're live on everything.
You just mention that.
So we start every episode with the simultaneous sip
So
where we
Isla
all
forgot
grab.
her drink.
Oh, I got a beverage for Isla.
Yay.
All right. I'm not going to say anything incriminating then if I'm live. I'm not going to say anything incriminating.
That's right. You can't say anything incriminating.
Not a single incriminating thing.
So grab your beverage
I know what you just said.
and join us in the simultaneous sip.
What are you guys drinking? Coffee?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm trying to get Isla on coffee.
Seltzer water is good for me.
But so far only Sume joins me with coffee drinking. But she does.
Like 5.
It took me a while to get to coffee too. Now I've moved on to mushroom coffee. It's pretty fantastic.
Mushroom coffee.
Or mushroom tea. Yeah, it's pretty good.
So this
3D
is
printed
like
my
this is
cup.
like medical mushrooms coffee. Like what is this? Is this some kind of like?
This is something that I saw an ad for on Facebook and just went for. As most people do.
It's the first person I've ever met that actually paid attention to a Facebook ad. I guess there's a reason why people pay money to put up ads on Facebook.
I'm the reason why Facebook exists because I click sometimes. They had a very engaging marketing campaign, and I need to be awake. So you put the two of those things together, and bam.
Ta-da! Well, I was telling the kids the other day a little bit about you. So before we launch into our discussion on escape velocity, I'll share the story about how I used to grind my teeth. I used to grind my teeth. And Aaron Weiner, now he's Dr. Aaron Weiner, he was my roommate in college. And he picked the one roommate that's like, half the night, like, and so he had this stick in his
Pole.
in his bunk bed. Yeah, it was this metal pole. And when I would grind my teeth, he'd poke me with it. And then I'd stop grinding my teeth. Basically, he trained me subconsciously. I learned to stop grinding my teeth thanks to Dr. Aaron Weiner. So I'm forever thankful, and so is my wife. By the way, she's grateful. She never had to go through that. So.
Well, it's my pleasure. It shows maybe I didn't need to go to all those years of grad school to help with some behavioral modifications, but I will mention that it was not quite as it wasn't quite as altruistic as it seemed. It was just annoying me to death. So,
right. He didn't ask me. He told me afterward. He's like, by the way, you stopped grinding your teeth, and here's why.
Yeah, it's basically aversive conditioning. Every time your dad was grinding his teeth, I would smack him with a stick, basically, and it worked. That's not how we do parenting these days. Of course not. No, we never do that. But in college, it can work. So.
Yeah, that's right. Very good. This is so great. So I was talking to Aaron last night, kind of random, and we got into talking about this concept of escape velocity that Sume and I were going to discuss this morning on Makeshift Homeschool.
I'm just here to listen and hold the lead.
Oh yeah, well you can join in too.
You can join in.
It's totally up to you.
Questions and stuff, but.
And then I don't know, the conversation was just flowing and it felt right. So I was like, hey, do you want to just join us? And it helps that Aaron has a doctorate in psychology. And so this is good. He can call BS on me and say, hey, I don't know, that's I don't think that's right. And so I thought this would be great to just have him to bounce the idea off of and have a conversation. So this is really cool. You just decided to join us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's no problem at all. It didn't hurt. It did. The armed thug that you sent with your invitation didn't hurt. But I'm joking. This is completely voluntary, and I'm really happy to be here.
The armed thug. Okay.
Yeah, the armed thug, like he does when he collects his debts. You haven't met Vino?
Yeah. Yes. You must join Makeshift Homeschool Podcast. Okay. So let's see if I can do half as good a job of articulating this morning now that I only just started to drink coffee as I did last night.
You should be if you use mushroom tea, you'd be good golden by now.
I'm gonna have to check out this mushroom tea. Okay. So here's the basic idea, and then feel free to jump in and help me with this. So we have found that there's a general belief that one has to make sacrifices in order to get what they want a lot of the time, right? This idea that, okay, you got to put off that which you desire in the near term, put off this desire for instant gratification in order to be happy in the long run, right? I think that's I'd say a lot of folks may even consider that to be a defining characteristic of an adult, the ability to put off instant gratification in order to invest in things that are going to help you to be better off long term, right? And I don't know if that way of characterizing a pathway to happiness is really completely necessary. I mean, it is in some cases, but I want to offer an alternative paradigm or way of looking at the world that might even be better than that, where you can have your cake and eat it too, shall we say. And the idea is if one is able to deeply understand that which ways that they want to add value to the world.
And also like special knowledge, which is one of the things that we talked about in one of our periscopes was special knowledge. And it's something that cannot be taught, but can be learned. And it's basically something that you develop through like just your circumstances and like your experiences and conversations you've had with people in your childhood and all those things. And if you find out what your special knowledge is, then you are able to like add value to the world. It's okay. And then and then you are able to find it, and it's something. The reason why it's so useful is because it makes you unreplaceable, because it's something that is unique to you. So you can
simultaneous sip is for people.
Yeah.
And you missed it.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I'm gonna try to drink Sume's coffee. So let me try to weave that into this. So
okay, let her work.
So if you can see ways that you can take your special life experience, your unique strengths and interests and passions, and align those with ways to add value to other people, then you can live that, and you don't necessarily have to make sacrifices in terms of doing the things that other people want you to do, or doing the things that you feel that the values of your culture impose upon you, because you're that which you want to do, that which you're uniquely capable of doing, is aligned with adding value to society in some way, such that if you live that, you can become very successful. And I would argue, if you do this right, you can be far more successful than the alternative, where you're, sacrificing so much and working so hard in order to try to achieve that which, you've been told you should try to do, because it's not as natural. It doesn't really come from within. So let me go ahead and pause there. Aaron's done such a good job of listening carefully and allowing us to try to articulate this. Maybe we should pause and give him a chance to respond to that. What do you think?
Yeah, no problem at all. I do this a lot. That'll be $200 now. I'm just joking.
Where's my thug? Beat Aaron, thug. Okay.
No, I mean, what you're saying. So something. One of the main central tenets of how we like to, as humans, we like to make meaning in our lives, and we tend to feel much more fulfilled when whatever our personal definition of meaning is in alignment with our behaviors. If we're not doing that, we feel depressed or stressed, or any number of things that kind of bring us into a negative headspace, body space, all of that. But it's because it's actually our body and our mind and our spirit, if you will, telling us that something isn't right. There's something inside of us saying, like, this isn't who I want to be. This isn't what I want to do. I'd say that a lot of people do get a lot of meaning out of helping others. Not everybody, certainly, but I know, speaking for myself, I'm definitely one who does. I remember when I was in college, right around, when what Joe was referring to is kind of when I came up with the idea that what was going to be the most meaningful for me was to help as many people as possible, and using whatever skill that I had. So by getting back to your point about, your individual skills or things that you've accumulated. For me, it was between music and psychology. And if you ask Joe, I mean, his pitch is much better than mine. So that kind of put me in my place. So here I am as a psychologist. But yeah, I'm with you 100% so far.
So that part, I think that first part, that first go at explaining this is pretty mainstream, like nothing terribly controversial there, right?
Yeah.
So maybe I could try to dig in a little bit at what I think is a bit more controversial. And that's this distinction between one's own value set and the value sets that are readily apparent to choose from in the world around us. Okay. So there are a lot of pre-made, out-of-the-box value sets that we can choose to take and put on. So, for example, the value set imposed by the broader culture around us, right? Things like these cars are nicer cars that help to illustrate that you're more successful. And by the way, we all need to plant this variety of grass in our front yard and make sure it's roughly this high. And just about everybody sends their kid to traditional public schools, and then they go to college because that's what you do in order to be successful and good, so that your parents can say that, look, my kid went to this college, see, I'm a good parent, right? There's these cultural value sets there. Then there's also out of the box religious value sets, right? Where particular religions will have their set of beliefs about, which person is living a good life versus not so good life, right?
Mm-hmm. And also with the, when you get to a point of escape velocity, the value set that in which you carry is not something that you've taken from either like your culture or your religion, etc., and something that's come from within, where where it's not just, oh well, everyone else is doing this, so I'm going to as well. And it's different, where it's coming from within, which makes it so that it's a lot more sincere, I would think.
It's sincere, but it's also like a lot of work, because, well, it's really hard to actually buy into a value set that we construct. I think this is why a lot of folks simply take the value sets that are pre-made out of the box, because we all know subconsciously all the times we screwed up, all the promises that we made that we didn't fulfill, all the times, all of our failures, right?
Like if you don't like,
we know how flawed we are. So for us to try to construct our own value set to live by, I think is very challenging, because we don't necessarily trust ourselves to make that important of a decision. And so we outsource deciding what values we can use to measure whether or not we're doing good, whether or not we're a good person. We'll take it from the outside world, because even though that's not necessarily better, it's easier to accept that one because it's from everybody else is doing it, right? And so it's got to be right?
It's easier to be wrong with everybody else than it is to be right by yourself.
Nice. That was a good one, honey. Jay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'd buy that t-shirt. Totally.
You buy that t-shirt? All right. So let's pause there and let this amazing listener, Dr. Weiner. Okay.
Yeah. So my mind goes to a few places. One is that I definitely vibe with that a lot. I've spoken with Joe quite a bit. I'm kind of on my own, at least professional self-discovery journey at the moment, and leaving the safety of, this might be a good analogy. I left the safety of a salaried job and kind of a more traditional career path, and I'm trying to just do a bunch of different things right now and follow passion projects, and I'm learning skills, and I'm failing, and I'm trying other things, and I'm failing. What?
Yeah, we talk a lot about the need for failure in order to build resiliency. So yeah, cheers to you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, every time I fail, an angel gets its wings, and so there's a lot of. I'm just joking. It's actually been okay in general, but one of the things that my mind goes to when I think about this sort of concept, and we talk about the idea of kind of like individual actualization, and this idea of out of the box standards and morals and values versus kind of defining your own and whether or not you trust yourself to do so. Is the idea of, well, what if, do you guys believe that there are some people who might really appreciate the safety of a pre-built structure? Some people who really feel like, all right, this actually fits me, or not even necessarily saying that, not saying it's right or wrong, just that they like it. Or another example that I'm thinking is coming to mind is the idea of more collectivistic cultures that might not value the individualized, go out, define your own reality and values, and that might actually even seem deviant in a way.
That's a really good question. I think that one can arrive at a place where their own personal value set is consistent with their broader culture of this idea of like wanting to put the community ahead of their own self-interest. But the question is where it came from. So this idea of escape velocity, which we still haven't really connected that dot yet. So I'm going to try to do that. Mm-hmm. If you just take it at face value, the value set imposed on you,
yeah, it's really hard to question that too.
Then you're limited in terms of how powerful you can be as an individual. So it's like because it's not really yours, right? So if you're acting, you can be living out the exact same value set, but I would argue that if you got to that value set from a place of deep introspection and you were able to fully kind of understand why you're living that value set, then your capacity to actually live those values and thrive on that and have that motivate you and give you energy is way more powerful than if it's something like, well, I do that because my dad said so, or because my pastor said so, or because my boss said so, or because my neighbors want me to, or because my kids, if I don't, will start smacking me with a metal pole, right? So it's like, if that's your motivation, but it's not coming from just continually asking the question why, until you've said, because I believe that is my purpose. As soon as that's your motivation, that's the escape velocity, because it just makes you unstoppable, because it's not smoke and mirrors anymore. You're not trying to constantly guess what the expectation is and taking your answers from outside yourself. You're finally able to get the answers from within.
So kind of what you're saying is that even if people arrive in the same place, the idea of, even if it is conformity, even if it is the same set of values, if they're there for their own reasons versus something prescriptive, it resonates a lot more.
I didn't quite hear that because our dog was making very weird noises. Can you please?
I know a great carpet cleaner. We should talk after. I've got a great carpet cleaner if you need it. Just putting that out there.
Okay, that's good. I don't know if it was that kind of noise, but you were saying something I really wanted to hear, and then all of a sudden the dog started going. Okay, go ahead. Say it again.
Yeah, that's probably more of a playful than I grab the cleaner noise. I was mostly just saying like that if people could arrive at the same general place, and even if it is that out of the box set of values, if they didn't get there because they just accepted it wholesale, but instead they did some introspection, they did some reflection, and decided after maybe testing it a bit that I want that. That's what I want. Then that'll resonate more and empower them a lot more than if they just accepted it because it's what was told to them.
He's really good. See, now you know why I invited him. He's a professional.
Also, it's really hard to question the values that are came from your community or your religion, because just like how because then you might find out something that questions your core values, which is the same thing that we were kind of talking about.
Oh yeah. It's like, how do you even begin that journey?
Yeah.
Right? Because if you imagine, so there's this premise, right, that in order for one to get up in the morning and do anything, they have to believe that their life has meaning, right? They also have to believe that they're somehow good, that their life is good, that they have value as a person, right? This is necessary in the way that air and food is necessary. But there are a lot of ways to satisfy that need, and some are healthier than others, right? So let's say, the value structure that's imposed on you, says, well, you have to, you can't eat pork, for example. Right? Or you can't, let's use a different example. You can't eat Girl Scout cookies. That's just part of that value set that's imposed on you, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot easier to simply accept that value set and then live by that than it is to start to want to poke holes in that yourself, because you risk possibly undermining your thought process that gives you value, right? It's like, if you're standing on this foundation, if you're standing on this pillar that you need to feel good about your life, why would you start questioning whether or not that pillar has integrity, right? Because what if all of a sudden mentally you're like, well, they're just Girl Scout cookies. What's the big deal? Well, then all of a sudden you start asking other questions, and boom, boom, boom. Pretty soon you're like, well, why am I here? What's the purpose of my life? I don't know what to do, right? And then all of a sudden it's like this existential threat on your whole sense of meaning, and it can all come crashing down. It's really scary, right?
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's what, a good solid portion of us exist on anyway. It's not less that if the choice is between questioning it and then maybe realizing that its integrity is kind of weak, or just having it disappear out from under you, it might at some point be one or the other. I'm thinking of the fact that a lot of people, when we think about what defines us, what gives our life value, there's a lot of things that people put it on this that's just not actually that solid, even though it seems like it is. It could things like physical appearance, things like your career, things like your possessions, things even like necessarily your family.
Shake and bake.
All these things can disappear. And so if that's what you are, we see this a lot when folks go into retirement, right? They retire, and then all of a sudden what they base their identity on is poof. At least the action that defined that for them disappeared. So I've seen it with, we call it adjustment to injury. When someone has an injury and then maybe they can't, play sports anymore, if they've got a traumatic brain injury and they can't think as quickly or as in depth as they used to. These are things where now all of a sudden, if being smart or thoughtful was a part of how you defined yourself, you got to take a step back and say, okay, who am I? What gives me value again? And it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said it better than I did. Yeah. Yeah. And those are really good examples. I've gone through periods, some of the early job changes where all of a sudden I was too fixed mentally on a particular job title or something that I did in terms of defining who I was and what gave me value, such that when I had to change that, it was a period of a lot of uncertainty. It made me really uncomfortable. And it was well, who am I? Am I an economist? Am I a consultant? Am I X, Y, Z? And yeah, it was really tough. But
you're a man with oscillating hair who climbs trees and has big thoughts. Just putting that out there.
No, that was, and I had that, and then all of a sudden I was a married man who needed to make money in order to take care of babies,
Right. So now you don't climb trees, but the rest of it is still there.
I still climb trees, but we have to stay close to the ground now, because I think back on some of the ridiculousness, and I'm wow, I could have easily died, very easily.
Yeah, this is like the first world equivalent of realizing that you ran through a minefield for fun as a kid. It's maybe we shouldn't have done that. Yeah,
maybe we shouldn't have done that. So here I'll start to kind of bring this to a close and sharing how this sort of epiphany took off and how this relates to makeshift homeschool, because it does. So I noticed that with a lot of the work that we're doing with young people, we're basically just asking them what their interests are and their passions, and then helping them to find ways to take that and create something of value for other young people, for their family, friends, whether they're making music or coming up with their own recipes, or doing research on some new technology, or Antigone. I was looking at your webpage, which we'll link on our YouTube channel, but I didn't realize that you were actually an expert in addiction psychology itself, that this is your specialty. I didn't know that. Well, she's really into addiction psychology, and so she's writing about this. So, but these were all coming from a place of them being interested in it. It was internal, as opposed to traditional schooling that is very much an external, no, you do this today, irregardless of what's going on in your life, or what you happen to have an interest in that moment, right? And because it's coming from within, there's this capacity to learn and grow and experiment at a rate that seems roughly 10 times faster than when it's imposed upon you. And so during this whole lockdown, and I'd say to some degree before, except that my daughters were in school before, and now they're basically homeschooling, that they're learning 10 times faster, and they're really enjoying it, and they're doing a whole lot of things that are very unique to them. They're following that path of special knowledge that Zume is talking about, where because they're listening to their own values and interests and strengths and passions, then it's taking them in directions that I wouldn't have been able to think up, because I would have been imposing my paradigm and my perspective on them. So there's no battle anymore. And I don't really feel like my kids are working hard either, because they don't seem like they're working. I mean, the 3D printer's running 24/7.
Now we have two.
And they're getting up and they're like, doing these interviews with other kids and collaborating on research projects and all this stuff, but there's no work. They're just doing. And it's like, okay, well, what's the name for that? And so I came up with this idea of, okay, this seems to fit this paradigm of escape velocity, where if you're living your own value set.
We didn't start recording the meeting. Oh, come on.
Oh, it goes to Facebook.
Okay. Yeah.
If you're living your value set and it's aligned with adding value to other people in some way, then you're done. You're good to go. It's just going to happen naturally, and you're just going to take off, and you never really have to look back and work anymore, because you've aligned being a productive member of society and adding value to other people, but also being true to yourself, all in the same set of actions and routines. Does that make sense?
Yeah, what you're saying kind of brings, to me at least, brings me back to where you started with this idea of delayed gratification versus immediate. And whenever I think about that, my mind goes to the famous psychology study, right, with the marshmallows on the table.
Of course it would.
Kids have a choice. You can either have like one marshmallow now or 5 marshmallows later, and see how many take one versus the other. And it's really hard. It's really hard to say no to the marshmallow. But I think part of what the beauty of what you're saying is, and what I think the tricky part is.
That is beautiful. Sorry.
I did call you beautiful, Joe. We've come a long way. Is that what if for a second you could make it so that you could actually take the marshmallow, but it still would be promoting your future. You would be doing something that is instantly gratifying, but also is deeply meaningful and adds value. And I think that that's part of how we don't generally structure our lives that way. Oftentimes it's like, I can either do this thing now at the expense of my future, or I could do this thing now. There's either opportunity costs, or it's a zero-sum game or something like that. But I think that if you can change the equation so that what you actually want to do is something that resonates with you, that has meaning, that enhances you, that enhances your world, you've created a win-win situation that's just ideal. And it's tough to do that, but if you can, it's a huge win.
Phew. Oh, I'm glad that you agree. Otherwise, I'd be in trouble, man.
My scorn. My scorn would bore through this computer and just.
That's right. No, but I think that, yeah, it's just a little bit shocking, I guess, because I feel like that way of thinking is so contrary to a lot of what, not necessarily that was told to me, but just the general expectation, what's implied by the world around me is one in which it just took a while for me to really get comfortable seeing the world that way, because it just seems so different. But it's really fun. I guess that's kind of the point. It feels right. So
I think the inherent risk, right, is that, the question is like, what if the world around you rejects your difference, right? Like, what if you're coming in and you're doing your own thing and is not picked up by others, and does it even matter? Maybe not on like a meaning sense, but on more of like a either like a financial sense, or there might still be some cost,
Yes. So that's where I think this whole rate of growth plays a big role, right? So what if Sumei's fascination with, say, 3D printing and like hardware, what if that isn't something that people want to buy or compensate her for right away, right? But because she's following a passion, she's going to outwork everybody else in that area because of the source of motivation, and she will find a way to make that add value to other people, because of that growth rate. But I think it's hard for people sometimes to, and it was certainly hard for me. Like I'm just like really passionate about writing, and writing is one of these areas that's highly competitive, right? Blogging and sharing thoughts in Word is something that there's like zero barrier to entry, right? But I just keep writing because I love writing. And so we're making progress, and more people are coming onto our blog and reading our stuff, but it was like 5 years in the making, right? And so if you don't have the time, if you don't have the financial stability to follow that passion, then yeah, I can see how, you just kind of have to make some sacrifice, and there's no way around that. I had to go work, doing consulting and whatnot for a good, 6-7 years before I had enough extra time to really spend so much time with my kids and to spend time cultivating my own natural interests. But I could have started a lot sooner if I had even known that was a possibility. I didn't even know. I just thought that school and learning was get told what to do. I didn't even know this was an option. So I think if kids start doing it early, they have the time. It's really the adults that have young kids. They're the one, like, you're in the situation where it's like, I hope you're passionate about what you do, because otherwise, good luck, man. Right? At least until they're older and can kind of take over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I mean, it's a fair point. And I think that there's like two sides to it, right? There's the principle, and then there's the implementation of the principle. And I know my mind went to this idea of acceptance and real world impact of that in response to that. Just thinking a bit about all the things that are going on with our country right now in terms of discussions around race and social justice, and how that's baked into a lot of different things in our world. And to me, this is just another one of those moments where if you're locked in, like if you're still on the lower side of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs for any given reason, and certainly socioeconomic status is one of them, it's really tough to start going up a level and being like, all right, how do I actualize when you're still thinking about making the rent or putting food on the table, or dealing with, not to get too psyche on you, but like ego threats and identity threats when you're dealing with racism, either implicit or explicit, and all that sort of stuff.
No, I completely agree. And, maybe if we have you on, I'd love to have you on again sometime, and we can talk about that application of this idea, because I do think that this concept plays a role in explaining some of those debates, right? Because identity politics, for example, that is a value set. That's an out-of-the-box value set that you can just grab and say, I'm going to look at the world through this lens. And then all of a sudden, everything becomes an issue about identity politics. And how you define yourself becomes an issue of identity politics. But it's an easy way to satisfy one's need to feel like they're part of something, right? Feel valuable, feel important, have purpose, all right there, right through the lens of identity politics, and you don't have to do any thinking for yourself, right? Because that would be too hard.
Heroes, villains, things you should do with your time.
You know who's good and bad now, right? So that's easy, right? Saves more mental energy for football watching, or other things. So no, I think that this definitely plays a role in that, and we should definitely explore that. I mean, that also relates to a debate. Sumi and I actually did a debate on how Americans can come together with a Democrat family friend of ours, Mike Stark, and his kids are in Makeshift Homeschool, and it was a 2-hour long debate.
Yeah.
On some of these things. Maybe
the answer probably is some combination of lasagna, chocolate cake, and churros. I'd say that somewhere between those, there's some place where we can all come together.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. See, he's a genius. I told you.
It's been great having a conversation with you guys. I'll come back down anytime. It's just early, but it works out okay. As long as you got your mushroom tea, you're fine.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get my mushroom tea. This is what I'll have to do. We'll have to get that going here. So send me a link on. We'll link that too. We're gonna link the mushroom tea.
They're not paying me. They're not paying me.
No, it's enough people have heard the reference now to the mushroom tea that I think we're gonna have to be like. And by the way, here's what we're.
It's just a running joke, is what it is. Although it is very tasty.
Okay, is it not actually mushroom tea? Now I'm confused.
No, it's legitimately they've got some sort of like couple of mushrooms in there, and then like turmeric and cinnamon and cacao nibs and such. It's supposed to be good for you. I like how it tastes. It's all right.
Okay. So good to see you. This is cool. All right, we're totally doing this. Next time, we're going to hit this idea of, I'll come up with a better title, but I want to touch on the broader implications on identity politics and some of the issues that the country's facing, and the root cause being, potentially, I'll argue the point of whether or not a lot of that is really driven by a desire to just satisfy that need for purpose and knowing who's good and bad by grabbing these off-the-shelf value sets, but how that's ultimately, I think, undermining our ability to come together as a country.
Yeah, because to question, to try to believe that, to try to listen to the other side and stuff would be to question.
You have to question your paradigm and the way that you see the world, and that's scary. Mm-hmm. And it's also just convenient that you get to create a value set that makes you out to be better than other people.
Yeah.
And what if they're on the same level as you now, then you don't get to have the instant feelings of superiority, and where are you going to get that from?
Just
now?
Like with your example, how maybe a person who really likes sports and then gets an injury or something. It's kind of
shake and bake.
And it's kind of with these identity politics, there's nothing to really question that, I would think. You can keep with the injury, then it kind of forces you to question your identity on whether or not,
right, you have to stop important. Playing. You can't just be hobbling out on the field still.
Yeah, but there's nothing, I don't really know.
There's no forced correction mechanism for an off-the-shelf identity politics paradigm, mm-hmm. the way there is with a football injury.
Yeah,
that's a really good point.
Yeah. Do we have time for another thought, or are we trying to wrap up?
No, go ahead. We do it all the time. We slowly wrap up for 20 minutes, but then we keep having other.
No, it's fine. I'm trying to read your cues and and be sensitive and not be a steamroller through the show.
All right, Aaron, we have to go.
No.
Go ahead.
No. So I was just thinking about when we're talking about identities leaving, right, and what's robust to changes, and your body and your life and the world around you. I think one of the concepts that we talk sometimes about with people going through these sorts of changes, and I think this might also relate back to this idea of getting in touch with your personal meaning, but is putting more stock in who you are and in your process rather than the outcome. Because a lot of times, like we put a lot of stock.
Circle of influence.
Oh, what? Sorry.
Circle of influence.
Circle of influence. Well, absolutely. Going back to 7 Habits stuff, but no, I mean even just more in terms of like, well, no, I mean I guess that is pretty accurate. But a lot of times, like in terms of getting the job or getting the promotion or doing well, and I actually use sports metaphors a lot when talking with people about this, where even like the best baseball hitters go through slumps, or the best basketball players, like shots don't drop, ball, you don't make good contact. And the question really is not, is it working out? Because there's a certain percentage of everything you do that isn't going to work out. The question is your process strong? And I think that if your process, if we kind of bring it back to this idea of self-actualization, if your process is something that's in line with your values, if your process is something that you're not just spoon-fed, that is something that you believe in, then that can actually, and if it's based on philosophies and principles rather than like, I don't know, Teslas and big houses or something, it's. Yeah. Although I take both of those things, those are nice perks. But if it's separate from that, then it can go through lots of changes, and you can be okay through retirement, through injuries, through a lot of things. You'll at least be resilient about.
Yes. Actually, that's very similar to the discussion that we had on the Froen Girls podcast about goals. Remember that discussion? It was like, what makes a good goal?
There's like 30. Yeah.
And that was the idea. It was like, okay,
yeah.
how do you construct a good goal? Right? And it was like, well, one, it's got to be in your circle of influence. You can't have a goal where the outcome of that goal is determined by things that you just can't control.
My goal is to stop global warming.
Right. And then every day you can be sad until it finally happens, but because of Elon Musk and not you.
I heard you can unilaterally release some sort of like sulfur composite into the atmosphere, and you can kind of reflect the sun back out into this.
We should experiment with our atmosphere.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen The Matrix. It's not all bad. There are some downsides, but
Yeah. So
is that reference too old right now? Is that like a 1990s or something?
No, I was just trying to show the kids The Matrix, but Isla's 8, and it just started to get into one of those creepy parts, of which there are many, and I was like, wait a minute, I should probably wait till she's 9.
Oh yeah, man. Let me tell like that bug. Oh man, that stuck with me for a while. I saw
really creepy stuff. Yeah.
That's really creepy stuff.
Yeah, of course, Isla's watching our dog lick her butt right now. So she's slowly becoming desensitized.
Yeah.
I just, the faster the better, because then we can all watch rated R movies together. I don't have to watch the movie Leap anymore. Like,
my first rated R movie was Con Air. I was in high school. I was on a date. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. It had Nicolas Cage in it. I now know better.
He's got the long hair, and he's like all bulked up.
Yeah, right. I mean, he'd do anything. He'd do anything at that point. But I enjoyed it.
My first rated R movie was The Big Short.
The Big Short.
I was 10.
Oh yeah, we showed the kids the movie The Big Short. It's just part of their standard educational experience.
I don't know that movie. What? Should I watch? Who's in it? What's it about?
Greatest movie ever made. It's about the financial crisis.
So interesting. They shorted the housing market.
Yeah. It's great. There's all kinds of really great like racist humor in there. Like there's a part where this guy, he's explaining the subprime mortgage crisis, and there's a Chinese dude next to him, and he's like, and somebody questions, he's like, "Are you sure your math is right about this?" And he's like, "This is my quant. Do you see anything wrong with this?" And then the camera goes over. "I'll give you a hint. His name is Wang, and he got the best math score in all of China on some contest." And then it like zooms into Wang, and he's like, "Actually, my name is Jeff, and I got the second best math score."
That's
parties. I'll like when people question me, I'll go to Lulu and I'm like, my wife is my quant. Do you see any issues? So now the kids.
All right. Well, I've got to watch that. But that sounds like a real horror story. You know, like the real horror, like the scariest movies are the ones where you like think it could really be real. And so it's like subprime market shortage. Like that right there. That's worse than like some crazy kid crawling out of your TV and killing you. I mean, that could really happen.
It's pretty terrifying. It's educational. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing to do with escape velocity.
Yeah.
We've really gone off the deep end.
Right now, I'm thinking of the dollar being devalued, and I'm getting shivers. I don't know what to do.
Well, we should have a separate discussion about economics and what to do in an environment where we printed 25% of the world's money in a 3-month period last year. And now
That's
a lot of it is
always good.
about to be unleashed upon the world simultaneously.
Take deep breaths and drink your mushroom tea. That's what you should do.
That's right. Just drink your mushroom tea, right?
And you'll be fine.
Just grab your Cocoa Puffs and you're good to go. Just
numb out. Just numb out. You'll be fine.
It'll be fine. It's fine.
Someone else will handle it.
Yeah. That's what gets us up in the morning. So.
Okay.
All right. Well, this is awesome. I'm so looking forward to our next discussion on movies. I don't know. We'll figure out what we're going to talk about. But you have yourself a wonderful day and
Wonderful day.
and sign up for Makeshift Homeschool.
Oh yeah.
Take them back.
Makeshifthomeschool.com.
Oh yeah. Okay.
All right. So great talking to you guys. It was great to see you.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.